Welcome into Outkick the Show. I am your fearless leader, Clay Travis. I hope all of you are having a fantastic day wherever you may be across this country or this great land. We have got a lot to dive into here. Coronavirus updates, NBA, Major League Baseball, college football, and the NFL. Is there a Jeopardy scenario or not? We will dive into all of that. Off the top here, I want to reiterate, for a long time, if you are active on social media, people have been sharing with you the idea that we are going to be Italy. We're going to be Italy. When we get as many cases as Italy, we're going to fall apart over and over and over again. This has been the mantra. Next week, it's going to fall apart. 3 days from now, 4 days from now, it starts. Italy right now has 9 times as many deaths as we do. Let me repeat that for you. We have more cases of coronavirus than we have tested and confirmed in this country. We have more cases that we have tested and confirmed in this country of coronavirus than Italy, and they have between 8 and 9 times as many deaths as we do. Why is that? There are a lot of different reasons. One is we're not Italy. We're not close to Italy. They have a lot more old people than we do. They have a lot more old people who live in a house house with younger people than we do. They have a lot more compact country. They have 60 million people living in a country the size of Michigan than we do. There are many different reasons why we're not going to be Italy, but this to me is evidence of the fear porn that you have been being sold. This idea of, oh my God, we're going to be Italy. Oh my God, we're going to be the Italy. Oh my God, we're going to be Italy. Right now, around 12 or 1,300 people have died of the coronavirus in a month. Did you know that 3 million people almost die in the country every year? Nearly 8,000 people per day on average. All right. Here are some of the death rates from different diseases in the country right now. Are you ready? Heart disease kills almost 650,000 people a year in the United States. Let me repeat this. Heart disease, which you probably don't hear about at all. Imagine if there were a ticking calculator for heart disease, kills 650,000 people a year. Cancer kills 600,000 people a year. We have lower respiratory disease, kills 160,000 people a year. Diabetes kills 83,000 people a year. Alzheimer's disease kills 120,000 people a day. A year. Alcohol kills, on average, 83,000 people a year. Drugs and opioids kill, on average, 70,000 people per year. Kidney disease, 50,000. The flu and pneumonia, nearly 60,000 people per year. Suicide, 47,000 people per year. Cars, 40,000 a year. Murders, 16,000 per year. All right? There are a lot of ways to die in this country. Coronavirus is not one of the remotely close to the most deadly thing that's going on here right now. And so I think what's happened is we have allowed fear porn to completely take over our national discourse here. Coronavirus is a disease, like many diseases. It kills right now a projection of a fraction of the people every year that the flu and pneumonia kill, which are both contagious diseases. If you are succumbing to fear porn, it is because you are not using logic and the rational thought of your brain to analyze what is going on right now. Okay? I think this is important. And I have been one of the people from the get-go that says we're doing, I think, a poor job of explaining data, right? If there was a ticker and every single day they told you how many people test positive for the flu or how many people are hospitalized for the flu, people would lose their minds. And they would lose their minds because most of this risk we accept as part of our daily life. And so I think as a social policy perspective, we need to go back, we need better data. And I've been arguing this for a long time, but we need better data to determine how actually dangerous the coronavirus is relative to other illnesses. Because I think if we had that data, based on what we are regularly seeing when people are being tested, I think what we would find, the data is suggesting to me that there are millions of people out there with the coronavirus. I think that's what the data is suggesting. As we approach 100, 1,000 that we have managed to figure out have this disease, we know that there's a huge number of people that are asymptomatic, a huge number of people that think they have a runny nose, a cold, a light illness, that are not ever going to get tested at all. And so when we're contracting this percentage of death, here is what is not going on. We have a denominator problem. And I keep hammering this home because it's substantially important, and I hear very few people actually talking about it. We have a denominator problem because we have hundreds of thousands more people that have the coronavirus than are going out and being tested for it. Remember, only people who feel like they are sick are supposed to be going and getting tested for the coronavirus. And most people who feel like they have a flu or don't even know they have it at all don't go tested, get tested. And so as a result, we have a massive denominator problem. It's not 1% of people that get the coronavirus that are dying. It's actually probably something closer to 0.3 or 0.4 at the most. And it might even be lower than that. The two Stanford epidemiologists who wrote for the Wall Street Journal said the data that they are reviewing makes them think that the coronavirus is actually less deadly than the flu. That's what they put in the Wall Street Journal a couple of days ago, two Stanford epidemiologists. An Oxford crew, pretty intelligent group from Oxford as well, did their own study and said they believe that millions of people have this disease. And I think if you look at the prevalence that famous people are contracting this disease. We had Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of Great Britain, announced that he had the coronavirus this morning. We know Kevin Durant, Donovan Mitchell, Tom Hanks, Idris Elba. Lots of different people in the public eye are getting this disease, and I think that's because they're more likely to get tested. So these numbers, I think, are important to contextualize what people are dying of. I don't think most people in America are aware that 8,000 people die every day and that nearly 3 million people die every year. And what we die of is a wide variety of things that we typically don't fear. And so the coronavirus, because it's new and because it's foreign and because of the way it's being covered by the media, feels more terrifying than it actually should if you consider it in the context of death overall in this country. So this is, I think, massively important. And there is a huge percentage of people that want to marinate in fear. And these people, I think, should be studied as well. Why do so many people want to be terrified and believe that the world is going to come to an end and even root for it to happen? It's really staggering to me that there are so many people that put themselves into this position. And people get mad at me because I'm actually sharing facts with you that contextualize larger issues. And the coronavirus, in terms of the situation that we are facing in the country today, and in the world indeed, in my opinion, is unlikely to drastically alter the national death rate in the United States or the national death rate in the world at large. It just isn't. Lots of people die every hour of every day, all year round. That's the way it works. And I legitimately wonder if suddenly we flipped a script and changed and started covering other diseases, like if we covered the flu or pneumonia or, God forbid, heart disease in the same way, this would be really kind of fascinating to me. And look, this guy says, you aren't covering facts, you're giving out information. Every single piece of data that I have given you is 100% accurate. It is 100% factually accurate. And I got to start blocking people here. I'm going to look over. The fear that is marinating here, it isn't going to continue exponentially. The number of people who use the word exponential and don't actually understand how it works blows my mind. It doesn't, nothing continues exponentially forever. It doesn't. I understand that you look at a graph and you look at it and you think, oh, if this trait continues forever, then X, Y, or Z is going to happen. But if the exponential growth in China had continued, the entire world would all have the coronavirus right now. Exponential growth doesn't occur. People change their behavior. They adjust on the fly. When risk reaches a certain level, people's behavior changes. These people out there, again, I think a lot of you are just not very smart in the way that you're allowing yourself to be manipulated, and people are grabbing a hold of your feelings and they aren't appealing in any way to your logic. And so I believe that you need to be using, like, there are two parts of everybody's brain, right? There's a emotional part and there is a logical part. And very often, if you're not careful, those two sides of your brain will not interact. And so you can fall completely victim to the idea that you are in fear. And I've seen this happen before, guys. I saw this happen before after 9/11, and I didn't like the way that I saw the country respond. After 9/11, everyone became terrified of terrorism, even though there was not really a statistical reason to be afraid of terrorism. And what I saw in the wake of 9/11, some of you are too young to remember this, what I saw in the wake of 9/11 was, if you questioned whether we should go to war with Iraq, or if you questioned whether we should be in Afghanistan, people immediately said you weren't a patriot. We even passed the Patriot Act. We named a bill the Patriot Act. And what I saw was we artificially circumscribed debate. And as a result, we made a lot of really bad decisions as a country. We went to war with Iraq for no reason. We said they had weapons of mass destruction. They did not. We spent trillions of dollars in the Middle East that could have been spent to help our country and gained absolutely nothing in the process. And one reason that happened, I fundamentally believe, is because we didn't allow real debate to happen, because if you raised up your voice, you got shouted down. This is why I'm a First Amendment absolutist. And what I see happening right now is we have got a lot of people out there who are unwilling to accept factual data surrounding the coronavirus that leads to anything other than the entire country being shut down and just throwing our economy into the ocean. Well, the reality is, intelligent public policy requires that we consider more than one thing at a time when we make decisions. You can't just shut down the country without the ability to really think through the processes. And let me give you an example. People get mad when you talk about how numbers of people dying, but I want you to listen to this. I'm not comparing them exactly. I'm comparing deaths. 40,000 people a year die in car accidents, okay? That's an indisputable fact. Every year in America, 40,000 people die from car accidents. And immediately, the coronavirus bros are like, car accidents aren't contagious, bro. They don't grow exponentially. But they do grow. And they grow on a definite basis every year. Over the next 20 years or 25 years, we are going to have 1 million people die from car accidents. That's unless we somehow manage to change cars so that they're all self-driving or whatever else. That means you can pretty much pencil in for the next 20 years or 25 years, 1 million people to die, right? From cars. Not in 1 year, but over the next 20 to 25 years, that's pretty much guaranteed. Okay? We could end that, right? You and I right now could sit back and we could say we need a national policy to end car accidents. And we would say, you know what? One of a couple of things. We're going to make every car get a governor put on it so it can't go faster than 5 miles an hour, with the idea being that that way almost no one can die from car accidents. Or we could just say, everybody stay in your house for a year so that we save 40,000 lives. And you could be on social media and you could be screaming from the rooftops, "Oh my God, why are you driving? Why did you get behind the wheel and drive? Do you not care about everyone else that exists in America? Stay in your house. Don't go outside. You can't do anything." People could make that argument. But ultimately, rational people would take a step back and they would say, wait a minute, the economy is reliant upon vehicles being on the roads. We have to accept a certain level of risk to continue our lives. That is called balancing health and public policy. We have made the decision that in order to drive cars, we are willing to accept 40,000 deaths a year. And on average, in order for our country to exist, we are willing to accept 2.8 million deaths a year. Now, it sucks. I'm going to die one day. You're going to die one day. Unless we become immortal and defeat death, which I certainly hope happens because I'd like to live forever, all of us are going to die. And on average, in America today, 2.8 million people a year are going to die. We have become obsessed with the coronavirus right now. But if you look at the data on deaths in this country, they are unlikely to change very much based on the coronavirus. Because many of the people who are dying of the coronavirus, as we saw in Italy, have pre-existing conditions. And they are dying because they are already weak and enfeebled. Now, I wish it wouldn't happen. I wish nobody was going to die. But it's unlikely that we are going to conquer death, and we're certainly not going to conquer death by focusing on one small segment of what people die from. If we want to declare a national war on death, we should go after smoking. We should go after fat people, obesity. We should go after cancer. We should go after heart disease. There are all different sorts of diseases that kill far more people. And so as a result, we have to be rational in the way that we make decisions. Okay? Again, Franklin Roosevelt was correct when he said after the bombing of Pearl Harbor, the only thing we have to fear is fear itself. And somebody just said, you couldn't be any less compassionate or aware. I'm going to block this person. My goal is not to pretend that I don't care about people dying. This is such a lazy and artificial argument. No one is in favor of death. Everyone is opposed to death, right? Regardless of what your politics are, Democrat, Republican, Independent, everyone should be opposed to death. But it is a natural order of life that death is going to occur. We have to fight it in an intelligent fashion using all of the data that we have to marshal against disease. We can't only focus on one disease at the expense of every other policy decision that we are making in the country. And so I agree with Donald Trump when he says we can do two things at once. We can fight the coronavirus and also avoid rising to up to a 20 or 30% unemployment rate. Okay? These are not mutually exclusive concepts. And so the idea that we have to be totalitarian in our commitment to one side of the equation and not consider the other at all is fundamentally broken. Good public policy comes when we apply facts and reason and logic to complex questions, not when we demagogue issues and try to argue that anybody who disagrees about the way that we're responding to the coronavirus is somehow in favor of death. This is not in any way a rational response to an incredibly complicated, larger public policy perspective. And what I am arguing for is using data to define our decision making in a more complex way, but not just data about the coronavirus. We have to look at the data surrounding the coronavirus in the larger context of American life. We can't do a response to the coronavirus without and intelligently, in my opinion, considering all the other aspects. What are we doing to kids, taking them out of school? What are we doing to depression rates, getting everybody losing their jobs? What are we doing to suicide rates with people losing their jobs and becoming incredibly terrified of society at large? What are we doing to the ability of our economy to function when it comes to people making car payments and paying for rent and paying their mortgages and everything else? What are we doing for alcoholism? When we tell people to go stay in their houses and not come outside, what are we doing for overall public health when we shut down all of the gyms and all of the parks and all of the outdoor areas where people go to get exercise to keep them from just sitting in front of the television marinating in fear porn all day long? All of these things are real questions that need to be asked, which are more complicated than we're just going to shut down the entire economy to avoid this virus, which may well be, in the grand scheme of things, not particularly deadly when you consider its prevalence and change the denominator. All these things are important, and we're not doing, and I don't believe, reacting in a very intelligent fashion. And what I see, unfortunately, is the minute that you ask any of these questions, it reminds me of 9/11, where when you ask these questions, people would say, well, you're not a patriot. People immediately say, well, you don't care about dying people. No, that's not true. The most patriotic thing you could do after 9/11 was ask the question, are we making smart decisions on behalf of America for the 300 and some odd million people still surviving after 9/11? And the most intelligent thing you can say if you care about life of all 327 million people, in my opinion, in America right now, is let's make sure that we craft the best public policy to help the largest number of people, not to shut down the country to help a tiny fraction, when, and by the way, in reality, it might not help. Cuomo came out yesterday and said, hey, you know what? Maybe shutting down everything has not been the smartest move that we could have undertaken in New York. Maybe shutting down schools and putting kids back in homes with elderly parents has not been that smart. Maybe we are exposing more people to problems by putting them inside of the home instead of being in college. College kids are not getting sick and dying. Maybe we want to keep all the college kids together instead of bringing them all back home and putting them closer to grandma and grandpa. Who ends up watching many young kids across the country when we shut down the school where the kids have no danger and bring them home? Grandma and grandpa. These are things that we need to think about instead of just trying to craft a policy, and very few people are actually having these kind of discussions because everybody's afraid of being demagogued over, oh, you don't care about people. That's crazy, all right? Clearly, everybody is opposed to death. Nobody hates death more than your boy here. But we have to consider how we combat death to make sure that we also aren't hurting more living people and creating more death in the process. This is really so, I believe, intelligent in terms of the discussion we should be having, and we're not having it. All right, let's get into a couple of stories that I think are interesting in the world of sports. Did you see the NBA? The NBA is trying to bring back, and I think this is a wild story. The NBA is trying to bring back its league, and I'm quoting from an ESPN story from Brian Windhorst. He said, various ideas have been floated by players and executives. One is to consider using a sprawling casino property in Vegas where everything could be held under one roof. Others have suggested playing in the Bahamas, where a ballroom could be converted into a playing court specifically for broadcast. This was my idea that I said on the radio the other day. There has even been talk of taking over a college campus in the Midwest where reported cases of the coronavirus are lower. Whatever the location, it would be a place where teams could sleep, train, eat, and hopefully be kept healthy enough to have confidence in resuming play. Maybe not to finish out the season, but to at least get restarted. Here's something that I think could work, and this is why I was talking about the college campus idea. One of the things I think we're going to have to consider is that for young, healthy people, the coronavirus is actually less deadly than the flu. Let me repeat this. For young, healthy people, people who are teenagers, people who are kids, people who are in their 20s, athletes who are playing at the highest possible level, more people of their age range die of the flu every year than die of the coronavirus. Why do I bring that up? If they are testing positive, the Rudy Gobert precedent that we put in place is we shut down the league and every team has to be quarantined. Well, what do we do if an NBA player tests positive for the flu? They might play if they're Michael Jordan, or at a minimum, they just miss a few games, they have to go back and they have to get healthy. Here is what I would suggest if they're bringing back the NBA and potentially playing all these games in one location. Why not have a bubble, basically, that you are creating? It could be an NBA, it could be a hotel in Vegas. And by the way, this could work for the NHL too. It could be a hotel in Vegas. It can be a campus, college campus, where you're taking over all the dorms. It could be an island like in the Bahamas, somewhere where you come in, where you can set up a perimeter. And in order to get through that perimeter, we're about to have 1 hour test for the coronavirus. You have all of the security set up so that they are testing everybody who is entering into that area, right? You have a perimeter set up. If someone tests positive, before every game, you test every player for the coronavirus, and you also test every player every day to see if they have a fever. If they have a fever, they're not allowed to enter into the locker room. They immediately go back home, and they're not allowed to return until they can pass and not have a temperature. Every single day before you meet with your team, you're staying in a room by yourself. You show up, there's a checkpoint. Everybody gets a temperature check on the basketball team or the hockey team. And then if you don't have a fever, you're allowed to go. Every single day you get tested. If at some point you become sick, then you go to your room, you have doctors that are there to treat you, and that is how that process plays itself out. To me, that is a solution that could make an awful lot of sense. Somebody just said, well, we need a lot more tests. Dude, we're testing 100,000 people a day. Per capita, not per capita. Worldwide, nobody has tested more people than the United States now. That's one reason our positive cases are exploding. We're testing over 100,000 people a day now. All right? Now, it's interesting to me, people complain about the testing, and they complain about the testing on a per capita basis, but nobody talks about the number of coronavirus infections we have on a per capita basis. Think about this for a minute. Nobody out there says, oh, well, the United States on a per capita basis has less coronavirus cases than almost all of Europe. It's, oh, the U.S. has the most coronavirus cases of anybody. And then when you come back and you say, well, we've tested more people than everybody else, they say, well, yeah, but on a per capita basis, you haven't tested as many. So here is the question. What is, in any way, the status? Are we going to go per capita or not? All right, so that's my idea for the NBA and the NHL. They could then, the NHL's tougher. I don't know enough about ice conditions. But for basketball, you could play a ton of games on one court, right? Especially once the playoffs start, you could play everybody on a neutral court in, let's say, Vegas or on a college campus or on one of these islands. And that way, you could set up the cameras to record the game, but there's almost no one there other than the teams, okay? That's at least an idea. Here's my talk about the college football and the NFL. Kirk Herbstreit, who's a buddy of mine, I'd encourage you to go listen to our Wins and Losses podcast that's out right now. Kirk Herbstreit came out and said that he doesn't think college football and the NFL are going to happen. I disagree. I think both college football and the NFL will happen. I think Major League Baseball will happen this year. I think the NBA will happen. I think the NHL. I think the PGA. I think NASCAR. I think all these sports will happen. Because as we get more data about the coronavirus, I think what we are starting to recognize is that the coronavirus, especially for young people, is not as deadly as the flu. And again, that's an important detail. I'm not saying it's not. We don't know, frankly, what it is in relation to the flu yet. But we do know, beyond a shadow of a doubt based on the data, that if you are under the age of 30, you are in more danger from the flu than you are from the coronavirus. Almost every athlete is under the age of 30, and outside of like Tom Brady and Drew Brees, almost every athlete is certainly under the age of 40, and they are hyper-skilled athletes. So I believe we will play college football, and I will believe we will play the NFL. And what I would say in general is it makes a lot of sense to be able to set up, like I just said, for college football, all these kids show up at the facility, go through. You're not allowed into the locker room until you prove that you don't have a temperature. And by the way, this might actually be a good process to put in place even after the coronavirus to try to protect locker rooms from the flu and other communicable diseases. If you test to have a fever, a nurse or doctor is sent back to you in your dorm room or your hotel room. There they treat you to allow you to get back to action. Everybody else, before they play games, is tested for the coronavirus because we have these new fast-acting tests. If you test positive, you're immediately pulled out, put into a hospital or a dorm room, more likely, or a hotel room to allow you to be treated and get back into the best possible condition. Remember, think about this. I had mono when I was in college. I don't know how many of you had mono. Sam Darnold just had mono. Mono is highly contagious and knocks people out for weeks at a time. Nobody suggested that the Jets locker room needed to quarantine itself. People have the flu all the time, and nobody suggests that they need to quarantine the locker room, right? And so, again, I think we have to put coronavirus within the context of other illnesses which have regularly been impacting locker rooms over the course of time. We need to test aggressively. But this idea that we need to, when Rudy Gobert tests positive, the entire league has to shut down, I don't really buy that as a legitimate response that is necessary for young people, right? If anything, I think testing all these players aggressively and regularly is probably safer while having them play than having them all out wherever they live across the country when they are more easily able to go out and interact. Now, I do love the idea of an NBA or NHL team all staying in the same hotel. Can you imagine the girls that are going to be trying to get into that hotel? I'd like a live cam of all the girls trying to get into the hotel when it's filled with NBA millionaires or NHL millionaires, or God forbid Major League Baseball decides to do something else like that. So I think it is an interesting question. I would love a live cam on that. But to me, you could have an entire league. Guys could get rooms if they want their wives or girlfriends or kids to come visit them. The kids have to come through the checkpoint, have to confirm they don't have any fevers, and then they're allowed to come in and visit. It obviously would set up a really kind of complicated system that's different, but it would allow the games to take place, and I think most of the players want to play those games. Finally, further evidence. Major League Baseball, the owners and the players came to an agreement that if they don't play this year, players get credit from a free agency perspective for the season. Now, Major League Baseball is outdoors most of the time. There are relatively few domes. That, to me, is an advantage that that the NBA and the NHL certainly are not going to have. But I think if you look at the data, most people out there who study viruses believe that as it starts to get warm, people are going to have less issues with the virus because it's not going to spread as much. So for baseball, I think this moves in baseball's favor very rapidly to a large extent. I think, again, we need to, and the owners in baseball certainly expect for the leagues to play. If you don't believe that the NFL or college football are going to be back, you're skipping over every other league, because I find it almost impossible to believe that college football or the NFL would not play if Major League Baseball, the NHL, the NBA, NASCAR, the PGA, if any of those leagues play the MLS, then I think the other leagues are going to fall in the line. Here's the other thing I believe. I think much like you saw every league rush to shut down in reaction to the leagues beginning to close, conferences and everything else, I think once a league comes back and has a week or 10 days of normal play, then I think everybody else is going to start to cycle back on too. Everybody's going to be a little bit nervous about being the first, which is why it wouldn't surprise me if all of these leagues get together and decide to come back simultaneously. Like, it wouldn't stun me at all if MLB, the NHL, and Major League Baseball all meet together, and maybe MLS as well, and they say, hey, we're coming back on, and I'm just tossing a date out here, May 15th. Every one of the leagues is coming back on May 15th, because that way the people attacking them for coming back don't have one particular person or one particular league to aim at. I think the first league that should come back in my mind is NASCAR. NASCAR and the golf, PGA, you can play golf without even needing to be that near someone. I argued on the radio show the other day, why couldn't the PGA come back and have every player carry his own clubs without a caddy? Make them walk 18 holes and actually carry your clubs. If you don't want to carry your clubs, let an exemption exist so you can drive around in a golf cart. No caddy. You don't even have to come hardly within 6 feet of anybody the whole time. The PGA has new rules in place where you don't have to rake and where you leave the pin in to try to avoid it. I don't understand why they couldn't actually manage to do that. Seems like it could make a lot of sense. NASCAR, you got all these guys in suits and helmets and everything else. They aren't even coming into contact with people in the same way. To me, NASCAR and the PGA will be the first back. All right. I love all of you. My name is Clay Travis. This has been Outkick the Show. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. Don't subscribe to fear porn. Consider everything in a larger context as opposed to maniacally focusing on one particular issue. I appreciate all of you. My name is Clay Travis. DBAP unless you need to SBAP. I will see you guys Monday. Maybe I'll come back Saturday or Sunday. See y'all. Love you. Thank you, Facebook. See ya.